High above the homes of Charlestown, where on June 17, 1775, American patriots hastily constructed an earthen fort, stands the Bunker Hill Monument. At 221 feet tall, this granite monument has been an iconic landmark in the Boston area since it was dedicated in 1843, making it the first monumental memorial erected upon an American battlefield. Since that day, generations of Bostonians, as well as dignitaries, poets, generals, politicians, and everyday citizens from around the globe have visited this hallowed spot, walked the Bunker Hill battlefield, and ascended the 294 steps to the monument's top. Even the Liberty Bell has paid Bunker Hill a visit. In the aftermath of the Battle of Bunker Hill, the victorious British soldiers buried the dead and improved their defenses in Charlestown. In the meantime, colonial troops, soon led by General George Washington, dug in around Boston. The stalemate ended after American forces seized Dorchester Heights on March 4, 1776, forcing the occupying British soldiers to evacuate Boston on March 17th. Examining the abandoned British positions, local colonists searched for the buried remains of their family members or friends who perished in the fighting. It was Paul Revere himself who identified the body of his friend, Dr. Joseph Warren, an early leader of the American Revolution. Less than 20 years after Warren's death, the King Solomon's Lodge of Freemasons acquired land in Charlestown from the Russell family, with the intent of memorializing this martyr for American liberty, himself a Grand Master of Freemasons. In 1794, an 18-foot-tall Tuscan pillar, costing approximately $1,000, was constructed. Modestly made of brick and wood, the memorial was topped by a gilded urn decorated with the Masonic emblems of the builder's compass and square. In the early decades of the next century, public interest in the Battle of Bunker Hill increased as new building developments threatened to overrun the battlefield. In the spring of 1823, several prominent citizens, including future Senator Daniel Webster, future Governor and Senator Edward Everett, and Dr. John Warren, nephew of Joseph Warren, formed the Bunker Hill Monument Association, with the intent of preserving what was left of the Bunker Hill battlefield, approximately 15 acres. The association also intended on building a new and ambitiously monumental structure, describing their idea as the grandest monument in the world, which would more enduringly commemorate the service of the thousands of patriots who fought during the battle. A foremost concern was what would this new monument look like. One of the only guidelines was that it be congenial to Republican institutions. In January 1825, the association advertised in Boston newspapers for designs, offering a prize of $100 for the winning one, which the association decided should be made of granite and be 220 feet tall. During the next few months, 50 plans were submitted, including a proposal by noted architect Robert Mills, who had already designed an impressive column dedicated to George Washington in Baltimore, Maryland, and who would later design the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. Eventually, the association's board of artists recommended Horatio Greneau's four-sided Egyptian obelisk design, although Greneau ultimately never received the prize money. Ancient Egyptians erected numerous granite obelisks and raised them at funerary sites. The obelisks represented a connection between the earth and heaven. Over thousands of years, most of these obelisks were transported to Rome, Constantinople, Paris, London, and even New York City. However, some described Greneau's design as looking like a spire of asparagus springing out of the ground. Nonetheless, with great fanfare, the Bunker Hill Monument's cornerstone was first laid on June 17, 1825, by Revolutionary War General the Marquis de Lafayette. Later, soil from the same location was included in his tomb in Paris. Present were 40 veterans of the Battle of Bunker Hill and 190 other Revolutionary War veterans. However, the cornerstone was laid before final monument designs were completed, and the cornerstone was unceremoniously relocated later. The granite necessary to begin the monument's construction came from a quarry in nearby Quincy. This site produced 3,000 granite blocks, each averaging 5 tons in weight. A 3-mile-long railroad, designed by Gridley Bryant, connected the quarry to the Neponset River. This rail line, one of the country's first commercial rail systems, still relied on horse teams to pull the heavy cars. Due to frequent equipment breakdowns, the railroad was only briefly used from 1825 to 1828. Work on the monument began in May 1827. Engineer Lawami Baldwin II provided the detailed designs inspired by Greneau's basic outline, but construction itself was supervised by architect Solomon Willard, a member of the association's board of artists. Willard remained as superintendent until the monument was completed, working without a salary except for living expenses, and contributed an additional $1,000 to construction costs. First, a 12-foot deep foundation was laid, and then the laborious process of raising and setting the granite blocks was accomplished using a derrick and a hoist powered by a team of 6 horses. However, a year and a half later, construction halted due to a lack of funds. Financial projections underestimated the true cost, and one worker died after being blown off the monument by a gust of wind. Nearly $88,000 had already been spent, a substantial portion used for purchasing the 15 acres of the battlefield, and only 37 feet of the monument had been completed. Although of national importance, the construction of the Bunker Hill Monument was not a federal project, and financing from the state of Massachusetts amounted to only $7,000. Primarily, funding was drawn from subscription fees to the Bunker Hill Monument Association. Membership cost $5, which entitled members to a certificate and an engraved sketch of the battle. Approximately 2,500 people donated between $5 to $500, but this was not enough. Work did not recommence until June 1834, with fresh funding from the Massachusetts Charitable Mechanic Association. The monument's height was raised from 37 feet to 85 feet, still not even half completed, before funds again were exhausted in November 1835. For more than 5 years, no more work was accomplished. Some tough decisions faced the Monument Association. The association decided to sell at public auction 11 acres of the battlefield, leaving only 4 acres for preservation. The suggestion was even made to lower the height of the monument from its proposed 220 feet to a more modest 160 feet. However, Sarah Josepha Hale, a magazine editor, organized a special ladies' fair in Boston to help finance the monument. In September 1840, this fair raised $30,000 in a week. 2 other private donors, Amos Lawrence and Judah Turo, each contributed $10,000, which was enough to get construction started again in May 1841. A steam engine used by contractor James Savage was employed to lift the last of the granite blocks and to power the elevator used by the workers inside. In only 1 year, 135 additional feet was added to the monument. a workman rode the 13 feet tall, 3-ton pyramidion, the obelisk's pointed top, as it was raised to cap the apex of the monument. A 26-gun salute signaled work was complete. Approximately $134,000 had been spent. On the 68th anniversary of the battle, June 17, 1843, 18 years after the first cornerstone was laid, the Bunker Hill Monument was officially dedicated in front of 100,000 people. In attendance were U.S. President John Tyler and 13 survivors of the battle. Daniel Webster gave the oration. He asserted that the monument stands a memorial to the past, a monitor to the present, and to all succeeding generations.